People learn best when coaches design the environment rather than constantly giving instructions. Well, today on the Coaching Podcast, it's my pleasure to interview Isaac McBroom. He serves as the Education Manager for the Professional Tennis Registry, PTR. He authored the book, A Constraints-Led Approach to Coaching Tennis, which is on Amazon, and explores the evidence-based adaptable athlete training methodology. And this season of the Coaching Podcast is brought to you by SAM, the AI tool built for the coaching world. If you're a coach, SAM takes the stress out of marketing so you can spend more time doing what you love, coaching. And if you're looking for a coach, think of SAM as a matchmaking service without the romance, helping you find the right coach at the right time. Discover how simple it can be at trysam.ai.
Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, coaching for success in sport and business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let 'em have it, coach.
G'day everybody, I am here today with Isaac McBroom. Now we met through Gordon Reed, of course, shout out there to Gordon. I know that he's going to jump on the podcast and he's a great leader of the lifetime coach education, as are you as the education manager for the PTR, the Professional Tennis Registry. You've authored books, you've also led your own consulting program, worked on the tour. You've got a very diverse background deep in the tennis world. So Isaac, welcome to the show. And I'm going to kick it off. Sometimes we kick it off with a quote or a little analogy. So for you, I want to say to you that I heard this one the other day. I taught my dog how to whistle. Can you hear it? Oh, I didn't say that he learned how to whistle. Kick it off. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you nailed it. I hadn't heard that one, but I absolutely love it because learning is only assessed by what, and in our case, we're talking athletes or leadership or what have you, what the learner is able to do in a real setting. I think that's the only way we should be assessing if learning has happened. Because I think we're on the same page with this. A lot of people teach a lot of things, and that doesn't mean learning's happened. I just read some incredible research about the retention rate in schools and colleges and in sports, and then how over time and even in 2 weeks, like 80% of teaching, if you will, standing up and lecturing and things of that type, about 80% is gone. And so learning is only to be assessed, in my opinion, by if they can do it in the real circumstance.
So many places to go already with that, right? I mean, you and I, we kind of maybe geek out a little bit on learning. We're both from that background. I mean, I studied sports coaching and administration. Now, day one, I remember the Vince Lombardi quote. They call it coaching, but it is teaching. You do not just tell them it is so. You repeat and repeat until they know, until they are convinced. And we definitely, in the early 90s, were taught the learning method of cognitive, associative that's a tongue twister, isn't it? I'll leave that bit in there. Autonomous, and that it happened in this way. And I had great mentors and great teachers in that course. And then somewhere along the lines, that got debunked for me. So I want to know about your moment, that debunk moment, and perhaps you can share, what was that moment for you where you were like, many people coach the way they were taught and that's all they know. And this is why we run the podcast, right? This is why you're in coach education, training coach development managers. There's a question in here somewhere, Isaac. I'm coming with the question. It is around what was that moment for you? Maybe it was the sliding doors. I remember exactly the moment for me that changed how I felt about learning. And Could you share just a little bit more about your background of this traditional versus modern way of learning?
Yeah, well, it's a big question, and I do have, I would say, a turning point moment. Not maybe the moment that I was totally on board with updating and kind of digging in more, but I remember a turning point where I was actually, and this happens to me a lot, where I wake up and my brain is trying to problem solve. And I woke up and I remember logically, I never even questioned at first the cognitive and the associative and the autonomous stages. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes logical sense to me. But at some point, I remember waking up and thinking, because I have a very analytical mind, how would you measure that? Like, how did somebody decide these are exist if it's absolutely immeasurable? But how would I know somebody has moved from the cognitive stage to the associative stage if we can't prove that they exist in the first place? Right. And so I was like, I want the answer to this. And at the time, I wasn't probably yet even thinking this isn't necessarily the correct way or the modern way. I was just trying to be able to answer the questions for myself. And then the more I started digging into it, the more I did find the stuff, the research kind of questioning it, if you will, debunking it. And now it's been debunked over and over and over again, where I think it's a great conversation starter. And we can say cognitive, associative, and we can say autonomous as a way to, kind of talk to our colleagues about where a student might be. But why wouldn't we just say beginner, intermediate, advanced? Are we not just saying the same thing essentially? They're getting it. Yeah, they're coming along a little bit better, but they're not quite there yet. Or this person's elite. And I just think there's so much more to it. And the more you read, the more you find out we don't know enough.
Well, we really don't. And what you just said there is still what's happening in the workplace. So these workplaces that I'm going into, the managers and leaders know no other than to come from this world of telling, this world of directing, this world of managing. And don't forget, Peter Drucker was probably responsible for all those management books that I read, in the sort of the 70s. And we even mentioned that traditional coaching being around from the 70s, and I was studying it in the early 90s. So talk us through sort of the shift. So we spoke about, I guess, the history and that moment for you as a problem-solving analytical mind, and where's the evidence, to where you are today. So my business is the Coaching Leadership Academy, play on letters, CLA. Obviously, I say it's a constraints leveraged approach. So your book, let's jump straight there for a minute. A constraints-led approach to coaching tennis. I want to take our audience on this journey, if we will, into what does that actually mean, the CLA, which we'll just use that for ease of approach.
Sure.
And so what does it mean to you, and why'd you write a book on it? Like, why is this so important?
Again, so much to unpack here. I don't know where to start, because this kind of talking shop gets me so excited. I think for me, the CLA makes so much sense when we think about how humans generally solve problems in their environments, and why we got away from that is very interesting too. But I mean, if we just watch a baby learning to crawl, and I actually use a video of, I've got about 30 different babies crawling in 30 different ways. And for the CLA, it's really about making or understanding that our actions are driven by our environment and our goals in our environment. So if I want a toy on the other side of the room, that's my goal. How I get there is not really that big of a deal, as long as I get there and accomplish the goal. So if somebody were to take a baby and be like, all right, left arm 90 degrees, now let's just repeat that motion over and over. We've got to get some muscle memory going in that left arm. Now the right arm. right? That's not what happens, right? It's just they come up with a way to do it. Some scoot on their butt, some use all fours, some, put their head on the ground. And there's all kinds of different ways to solve this problem. And so I was like, at what point did we stop and start telling people that, no, you have to do it this way. This arm has to move just like this, or the arm has to move just like this. And that's not really what we were designed to do. So when the more I read into the research and even thought about the way I used to coach or the way I was brought up, I just thought it's not that it can't help. It's just, can we be more effective? Can we help our learners even more? And for me, if our goal as a profession is to be the absolute best we can be, then we need to have that in mind. The goal is to help them the absolute most. And I can update the way in which I do that if new research comes out. I can't imagine another profession that you would do that. Emma, would you feel comfortable if you went in for a heart surgery and the guy says, well, I did this 20 years ago, so I'm probably all right, right? We would want them to be as updated as humanly possible. And I think that goes for us too. We're not volunteers, we're professionals. And so we need to have the most updated information. And that's why I thought, all right, I know this book is not an exhaustive Bible on everything we could do, but if I could just get some folks thinking, I wonder if I'm going to try this. And then I think we're making progress.
And then, of course, I just want to tap into how powerful I wonder if. And imagine if your students are saying that back to you. Here's the environment, here's the goal, and they come back to you. I wonder if I hit this ball higher, would that buy me more time and space? As in the workplace, problem-solving environments, allowing our people to explore, imagine if, what if, so that. Questions are the answer. What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. I love it. And even more so, I think guided questioning is great and it's a wonderful idea, but purposeful questioning, I think can really help in whatever scenario, to get someone to think and problem solve and be adaptive, where especially in the sports scenario, where can you, what if, like you were saying, these are awesome questions and ways to spark ideas. It's okay if the answer that they come up with doesn't work. That's also information that they're going to turn and use for whatever they do next. I mean, we learn when we make mistakes. Especially like in the tennis world, I tell folks, we don't need to get paid by the word. If somebody hits a forehand their first day out of tennis and they hit the back fence, do you need to tell them they hit the back fence? Pretty sure they saw it. And also, I think their next shot, they'll probably try to make an adjustment. Let them have that space to try to move around and see what happens. If I swing a little bit less, what happens? If I swing this way, then what does the ball do? And they're going to explore a little bit. And of course, our job then becomes to be that questioner.
Great YouTube clip, everyone. Please check it out. Sir John Whitmore, arguably the godfather of business coaching, is doing a golf lesson. And there's a traditional golf coach who's saying, feet shoulder width apart, and you get your grip and you interlock your fingers and tilt get your shoulder. And then Sir John Whitmore just says, just hit a couple of balls. What did you notice? What did you feel? And her experience of her very first golf lesson to absolute beginners compared to the over-instructed approach is night and day, chalk and cheese. I'll put that link in the show notes on this episode. I thought that was really, really relevant. All right, so let's talk about under pressure, right? So I've only ever met 3 girls where I said, you need to step up and win for Australia today, and they could do it. Pressure environments. Hashtag, no more lines, right? I'm on a global mission. When I see a line of kids learning how to play tennis, just breaks my heart. So where I'm going with this, I guess, is around when people own their own solutions. I don't know if you've got any specific research on this, but I read it recently that perhaps they own it 70% of the time, but I wonder if I need to get more concrete evidence on that. Because what I've seen when people are under pressure, if they've already been under pressure in practice environments, then and they've had the opportunity to problem solve and work a way out, then they'll own that in a match. What are your thoughts on these pressure environments? Like, I just don't see it in practice enough. I know that you're the coach. I know you're getting paid by the parent or whatever, and you want the child to look good in practice. But half the time, especially here in America, kids can't perform under pressure. And knowing that most of the kids that I've coached in over 30 years of coaching, they can't handle that pressure. That's one every 10 years that can actually handle it, where you can focus on the win. So I guess, yeah, just what do you go anywhere you want with sort of what I'm talking about? And do you have any evidence around owning your own solutions?
Yeah, there's quite a bit. And I think you've hit a number of different points there where one, under pressure, depending on the way you were coached, there's quite a bit of research by Gabby Wolf and et al. About the way that we coach someone will lead to them using those cues under pressure situations, because that's when they feel it the most. So, I mean, in a racket sports world, as an example, third set tie break. And in my head, I'm thinking, this is a really important point. I've got to remember to take a shorter backswing on this return of serve here, because that's what coach told me. All right. The issue with that is now we've essentially taken our brain out of its automatic mode, which is significantly more effective and faster and more successful. And we've put it back into manual, and we're overriding the movement that our body would naturally make if we hadn't done that. So we tend to make more mistakes. This is called reinvestment, where we're actually overtaking how our body would react normally in that situation and trying to force it to do something else. So we make mistakes under pressure. That's one huge issue. And if you teach someone by giving them instructional cues, do this, do this, do this, do this, they have all that information to use for reinvestment. If we never give them that, there's nothing there. They only think, I need to get this outcome to happen. And then they've trained their body to create an outcome. So it just happens. It's much more effective. And there's a lot of research behind that in just about every sport, in just about every way they've tried that. This continues to have the same results. So the way we phrase things will make a difference under pressure. But I was going to say some of the other things that you brought up and discussed is about representative practice. So if we're not practicing things that are going to be happening in realistic competition, then they won't be ready for those. Just as you said. So an emotional response is something that we can create, and you have to be creative. But I've done things, and of course I wouldn't do this with every group, but I've done things as creative as with groups I'm really comfortable with, that I know are comfortable with what I'm doing through them. But I might say, hey, we're going to play sets right now, and the losing team has to sing I'm a Little Teapot with the motions as loud as they can to the club in the lobby. It's not that it's that big a deal. And if somebody's uncomfortable, I would never make them do that. But if we have a group that's comfortable, there's a little something on the line. I mean, we can never make the US Open finals, type nervousness and feeling, but we can add something. Or, hey, I'm going to post the scores, on my webpage tonight. Or I'm going to post the scores in the lobby today, or whatever it is there. We can add some things on there. Even if it's small. I once played right out of college. I remember playing a set. And the player was very good, national level 18-year-old. I was like 21 out of college, and he beat me 6-1 in a set. And I said, all right, let's play for $1. And I won 6-0. Like it immediately switches when there's anything on the line, and somebody who can handle it and someone who cannot. And it really does go back to the way you practice.
The Australian Open had the, of course, the $1 million point with the amateurs playing the professionals, and an amateur ended up winning it. He's a coach, so I mean, how cool is that? To just, I'm not saying we put money on the line, and even the pros were like, some of them double faulted. It was a 1 point match. So I think I'm loving everything you're talking about, and again, so let's just go back to when I first heard about the constraints-led approach, which is how it's referred to. When I first heard about it, the problem was that coaches lost their identity a little bit. So again, I'm the coach. I've got the knowledge and I've got the biomechanics and the skills to teach. So when I have to just use constraints, whether it be an individual constraint, the person's height, for example, the environment, maybe the tram lines are in and you're playing singles to work on width, or an equipment. Maybe you've got to use an old wooden racket. So to get a message across, they kind of lost their identity a little bit. And I remember it was 2001 when I first even heard of it. So talk to directly to coaches listening to this that still are not convinced, because I know that you, with running the PTR Coach Education, I'm quite across some of the changes you've been making. And I think it's, of course, you're preaching to the converted here. So I want you to talk to that other coach that is still a little unsure about it. What would you say to that coach listening?
Yeah, and we run into lots of barriers and reasons, and you nailed one, is that it sometimes makes a coach feel as if, what am I there for then? Because if you're not really understanding quite as much about the CLA, it might seem, and this is something that gets said to us a lot, so I just stand back here and watch. Like, no, that's not quite it. That's not quite it. And it's not the games-based approach. That's a different thing too, where we just throw a game out and let that happen and see what happens in the game. We become more of a guide and an environment creator, but we have to be very good and very, very purposeful to create the right environments, because we still need, and I don't like using the word technique, but we'll say functional technique or skilled movement, however you want to say it. We still need a few things to happen in a forehand for them to work, or a few things in a serve for them to work well at a particular level. And we still need to understand that knowledge. It's just how we get the other player or our learners to do it is different now. So we're going to create environments that if we do it really well, those movements will come out. They'll get to those movements on their own. And we're going to help guide them by questions, constraining different rules, movements, things like that. Well, we're not necessarily trying to prescribe something. In a constraints-led approach in particular, we're actually trying to remove a part of the movement that we don't necessarily agree with, or we think is less than desirable. We're not, anything else is kind of free game as long as they can solve the problem, except for this one part of the movement. We're going to try to remove that. So, I mean, as an example, players with way too large of a forehand backswing, I'll often have stand on one leg and hit with me. And what we've essentially done is, if they take too big of a backswing, they're probably going to lose their balance. They'll have to put their other foot down. Anything else they do is going to be fine for me. So I've removed one part, but everything else is okay. So we're not necessarily just sitting on the side in the background. We still have a really important job. It's a very difficult job to do well. And because it works differently with every individual, something you used one day with one person might work differently with another person. So you really need to be updating and be on it. So I actually think not only does it not take us away, I think it adds us even more into the profession.
Yeah, I agree. And it's hard. It's not easy. When you begin down this journey, which we are inviting you to jump in, people, full steam ahead, feel free to throw yourself in that deep end of that swimming pool. Some people might not have even heard of what we're talking about. Sometimes when I still watch lessons, I'm like, that this could be new information, right? Doesn't matter if it is or it isn't. We invite you to jump in the deep end, because that's by taking action, you will grow. You can't just go to the next level. You have to grow to the next level. So that'd be one thing. And I think actually it's the opposite. It builds your identity and your character as a coach, because it's not easy to do it. So please explore, experiment, discover what's possible within it. So I love that. And this is just another random story that this is, we ran this camp once, and we exposed, camp for some of the best 14-year-old girls in Australia. And we taught them, there was a section on ball personing, line judging, coaching, obviously playing, but the section where they had to coach us was fascinating. So they had to create an activity, and it was on it. And this is kind of recent, maybe like 5 years ago, but it was hit one cross court, forehand, one backhand, hit the approach, volley, overhead. And I was like, oh, wow. Because not their fault, right? They know no other. So I just want to say, we don't know what we don't know. And this type of coaching also builds in the creativity and the adaptability, which is why I think the game of tennis is so exciting still, and it's still got so much potential. Where do you see the next evolution of us continuing to grow the game?
Well, I really do think it's in the CLA and ecological dynamics and this science. And I mean, a coach doesn't have to be as in it, maybe as you and I are, just fascinated by it. But we're losing so many players out of the game, whether that's recreational players or whether that's elite players that have been training for years and hitting the millions and millions and millions of balls, and it's injuries. So the CLA has so many benefits on top of just more effective outcomes, such as reduced injury. If we're not using the exact same muscle to hit the exact same way over and over, because I have slight differences in the way that I swing, the injury reduction is going to be huge. And that's been shown in baseball and baseball pitchers, where they put counts on baseball pitchers, even from young ages, but we're actually seeing an increase in injuries since those counts have gone in. So it's not necessarily just the repetition, it's the way the repetitions are being done. They're always the same repetition. That's damaging. We need a little bit more variety. But more importantly, or just as importantly, I should say, because safety is big, but it's more fun. The average, and Emma, correct me if you've heard this one, this blew me away when I heard it. The average new student in tennis takes 3 years of lessons before they ever play in a competitive environment. That's not tournaments or leagues. That's Friday night mixer night. They take lessons and we put them in lines, and the idea is we want them to look like they know how to play tennis, and they don't even know why. Why would I want to do this? Like, first we need them to play, enjoy, and have fun, and then have a reason to get better. But then they're going to stay in the game longer, because we've seen all this data from USTA and Tennis Australia, where we're getting more and more players to try tennis, but they're not staying. So I think that's, to your question, is the next evolution is, how do we get people to have more fun, have more success, and continue to want to play the game? Because that's going to help everyone in the industry.
I'll never forget, for fun during COVID, I met the most awesome group of marketing ladies who'd never played tennis before. And when they rocked up, they said, aren't you going to tell us like how to hold the racket? And I'm like, well, if you're holding the head and not the handle, then you'll soon maybe find that that's a little tricky. You might not have so much success. And by the end of that first lesson, we played we played a game, and another great thing that Tennis Australia did do was, the ball is a constraint, right? So tennis ball is a tennis ball, and they created this ball that's the same as a red ball, but it looks like a regular tennis ball. So it doesn't feel like you're using a baby ball or, the five-year-old ball, which I thought was so clever for high school kids. And again, we played the game, but we just played in the service boxes. I'd never played tennis before. We had 8 ladies playing tennis in the service boxes.
Awesome.
Yeah. So cool. Love it. All right. Now is our holy grail question of coaching in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. What do you think makes a great coach?
I'm going to say theory of mind. And theory of mind is understanding, and humans have an ability to understand what someone needs by everything they're taking in. So, for example, if I'm talking to you and you're telling me one thing, but your body language is telling me another, I have the ability to understand, okay, let's not do this today. You're having a bad day. So theory of mind gives us this innate ability to help our students with what they need when they need it. And I think it's the only skill that's ever been measured in public school teaching with effective learner outcomes. Because everybody has different things that they're good at. Understanding and knowing what a student, where they are, and being able to read that situation is the number one skill that's ever been measured.
Theory of mind. That answer has never been had on the show before. And of course, I've probably asked over 1,000 coaches now. And the simplicity of the HI skill that we as coaches have, that AI can never replace. The AI can never replace reading the body language, reading the cues, hearing the tone.
And our ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes is uniquely human. For example, if I said, can you imagine biting into a lemon and your mouth begins to water? This is only human. Or if I showed you a picture of somebody skydiving, our heart can flutter. That's the same skill. I'm understanding what this person is feeling right now based on who they are and what they're going through. And then I can make adjustments to that rather than I want to do this because I'm the coach.
Mm. Even recently, we had a coach on the podcast just give an example of working with a 12-year-old girl, and he just said to her, what do you want to work on today? And she said, no one's ever asked me that before. Yeah, not even work on it. It was like, what do you want to do? Like, why do you play? Like, what are your strengths? What do you like to do to your opponent? Like all these types of wonderful questions that need to be added into the coaching toolkit. All right. Our audience is both leaders and managers. So what has all of this got to do with a leader in the workplace? Like how is it important? Is it transferable? Do you think the CLA, can it transfer over into the workplace?
Without a doubt. Especially from a leadership standpoint, really good leaders, in my opinion, and you'd know the research of this better, but in my opinion, just from, let's say, trial and error or experience of working with different types of leaders, really good leaders help and want those who work with them to be in the best positions to succeed, to have autonomy, to be able to creatively think, to be able to make mistakes and to learn from them, and then to be there to guide and support. Especially Gen Z, with information that's coming out, they do not like to be told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Things are changing, and if our leadership does not catch up, it's not the workforce that's having the problem, it's the leadership. And so I think this absolutely transfers into creating good leaders, which creates good cultures, which creates great staff, and then coming up and having succession plans of new staff being able to problem solve and take leadership roles in the future.
Because, I don't think I've ever met anyone who doesn't have a button, a driver. And as a coach, as a leader, as a manager listening to this, like, how many extra tools can you add to your leadership toolkit to find what is that drive for that person? From the inside out, not just the outside in, like the rah rah speech. I remember back in the day, I worked with this coach, and very famous coach, and I'd warm the girls up and they'd be really ready to go, like a squad, so under 12 girls. And then he'd tell a war story for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a great story, but you could see that no one was listening. Like, even though the story had great value, it just didn't have value in that moment, because people don't really care what you know until they know that you care, especially when that's a subtle, maybe gender difference as well. So, yeah, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, and I think the entire intent, I mean, the way you said that was great, because you said everybody has a button, but we can't assume all leaders are looking for that button. And I think that's the thing, is we have to put them into a position to create a culture where that's what they're trying to do. And I think that's what the CLA does.
Yeah, absolutely. You just mentioned ecological dynamics, so we better just define that for our listeners, just again, so we're not just throwing in terms and confusing people. So what do you define that to mean?
Yeah, and so ecological dynamics is kind of, let's say, the overarching umbrella over the constraints-led approach, which is within that. And it's really combining ecological psychology and dynamical systems theory. To break down easier, it's I move in relation to what I see in my environment and what I'm trying to do. If I want to run across the forest and there's a log in front of me, I need to jump over it, or I need to find a way over it. So I move in relation to what I see and what my goals are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just randomly thinking about when I was in New York, and they were a bit short on space, and I was in the Grand Central Station. I went up, and they had these tennis lanes, like bowling lanes. Have you ever seen that? Just like can't have a space for a big court, so it was a ball machine with a lane. So you were literally just working on the lane, and I thought, oh wow, I wonder about somebody's ability to transfer that learning when all they're doing is repeating a ball coming straight at you and then hitting a ball straight back, which the French Open being on right now, when do we ever see line in a tennis rally, right? And in my TEDx talk, I talk about no two balls ever bounce in the same way, requiring us to really open up our thinking. So that is a constraint, isn't it? It's like
Yep.
But I do even like the image of the guardrails of like a 10-pin bowling alley. As a coach, we've got the guardrails on, and what are we doing within the lane to open up curiosity and open up discovery and open up thinking? So maybe round this episode by sort of letting us know you've redesigned the coach education, at PTR. What do you think has been the main shift that you've really focused on?
I love saying, and I'm so excited to say that we have really dove into teaching coaches more about skill acquisition, and on a level that makes sense for where they are, meeting them where they are, and kind of bringing up the topic and then giving options for them to dive into different areas more that interest them. So in the past, the PTR brought growth, development, and maturation and made it industry standard. Now everybody does it. Then we pushed the boundary and we brought how to coach skills, and now everybody does it. And now I'm very proud to say that we're pushing the boundary again, and we're going to be the first in our industry to officially put into our certifications skill acquisition based in the most modern research on with the CLA and ecological dynamics and things. But we're breaking it down in much simpler terms, so it's a little bit easier to understand. But as you progress further and further, or if that's something that excites you, we have options that you can learn more. And so that's the other thing I'm really proud to say that we're doing is certifications we love. And obviously that's been the backbone of what PTR and PPR and what we've done for 50 years. But now we're starting to add more because we know certifications by definition have 8 domains. That could be safety, technical, tactical, that could be athletic development, but maybe you don't want to learn all that deeply about any one, like all of them. And so the level 2 or the level 3 certification might not be for you, but you really like athletic development and you want to be a specialist in that area. So we're now creating courses that are almost college level depth courses in a pathway that you can learn what you want, when you want, to the depth you want in the area that excites and motivates you. And we're going to be the first to be offering that as well.
Yeah, in real time, in a real situation.
Absolutely. Yep.
It all comes back to that, doesn't it? It has to be applicable. Yeah.
Yes.
Make sense.
Everything we're doing is going to be based on how you can use it in your day to day, even with minimal equipment. So, for example, the first level of that specialization pathway in athletic development is specifically designed to use on the court without equipment. So any coach could use it without working at a high level facility that has weight rooms and all the modern equipment. You can do all the assessments and work with the kids or your students right there.
Love it.
So if it's not applicable to your day, what are we doing, right?
Absolutely. And if you can't, again, as I said, jump in, just jump in. And I love, I'm into this comment at the moment, which was, you can't go to the next level. You got to grow to the next level, and you only grow to the next level by taking action. So please, everybody, may this episode just have triggered something where you want to go a little deeper and just discover and see what happens for the learner, not just yourself. Watch the collaborative dance. I think that's one of the coolest parts of why we do what we do. All right, it's time for our rapid rally. Isaac, are you ready?
I'm going to try.
Well, you know what Yoda said. There is no try. You will or you will not.
Do or do not.
Do or do not. Correct. Okay. Adaptation is
essential.
Discovery means
mistakes.
And it's okay if
you try anything.
You try anything.
I've been blown away by what I've thought my students would do with some of my activities and the way they solved the problems that I never imagined. And I had to go back and be like, well, that didn't work. And try again. Or that worked better than I thought.
Or I love it when I say, bring it in. What do you think was the purpose of that activity? And they say something that was like, nothing to do with what I was thinking was the purpose. And I was like, that's really interesting. And what else? I love that question, by the way. I'm always providing examples, practical examples on this show. And what else? So it's, that's really interesting. Never thought about that before. And what else? Rather than but. And negates what the person's just said. And who's to say that they're wrong? Just because that's not what you had in your mind as the purpose of the activity. Well,
I love that one so much. I hope it's okay. I'm going to steal it.
Please, this is what the show's about. This is what
the
show is about. How can we all support each other? And a big fan of the PTR. Very honored to receive some of your recognitions over the years and presented, I think I added up, maybe I've done over 10 presentations on Hilton Head Island, and huge, the family feel, the family vibe from even PTR in Rome and the UK and all over the world. May you continue to lead the way, Isaac. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you. I was totally honored when you asked me, and I thought if you were willing to ask me to talk, I feel like I'm doing something all right, because it was fantastic, and I just think you're at the top of what you do.
Thank you so much. And everyone, we really, really appreciate your discovery attitude today. And thanks always for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com.